Okay, so for any process to be successful, the main important thing that we need to do is to make sure that it is error free, or even if we have errors, we need to make sure that we are able to work with errors. For example, if there is an exception, how exactly are we going to handle that particular scenario? Are we having any retry mechanism? And what are the steps if there is something failed, and how the bot is retracing itself and coming back and making sure that the bot starts. So these are all the steps that we need to see, or that we need to check and accept. Okay. Now, Alekia, whatever she have done everything in the main. Alekia, we need to have your screen online.
Sorry. I thought I can check again why it's not working.
Not working.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
be ready and be aware before we start. So this is not an RE framework process, right?
Yeah.
Now what we shall do is give me the access, please. I'm waiting for approval.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm taking it to full screen. Just a second. Okay, so let's create one more UiPath Studio.
My machine is a bit slow, Vajra. It takes time.
Okay, then send your supply chain management in GitHub and send it over to me. So don't
Yeah,
send
sure.
files in WhatsApp or in Teams or anything. Use GitHub. Is it done? Have you committed the code?
Yeah, doing it. I'm pasting it in your folder.
Yeah, go to Vajrang team, project team one.
Yeah.
Yep, week two.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Leave it. I'll change. Just commit the code and push. Are you getting a lot of noise from my end?
Yeah, a bit, Vajra.
I'm not sure how many of you know. Today is my voodoo. Within next half an hour or 1 hour, people are roaming around my house like crazy. Let me move into a different room.
How are you managing, Vajra? All this.
Ashram, you could have taken a 2 days or 3 days break and extend the session line instead of getting hurried.
Yeah, yeah.
You could have enjoyed your events.
No, no. The thing that will happen is once we miss out those flow, again, you people will be relaxed. I don't want that.
You can give
But this is
some
a one-time event.
projects.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Okay, anyhow,
Yeah,
let's
Vajrang.
continue. Tomorrow is the only day, right? Today, let's continue. Uh, what's happening?
tomorrow's session, make it extend it for one more day and take a break for yourself.
No, no, we are already extending the sessions, that's for sure. But I don't want to miss you guys to continue the sessions. Is it done? Make a pull request.
Yeah.
By the way, when is your wedding?
I'm inviting every one of you. I have already invited. Please come on 24th of April at 8 p.m. At I'll send you the location as well. Please do come. Okay.
Is
You're
in
crazy,
Hyderabad?
Vajra. You have your own wedding and taking classes in the morning.
Now, what shall we do? Commitments need to be met. Okay. Is it done?
Yeah, done, Vajra.
Okay. Let me just check with some pull request. Merging. Is it with
Is,
Lakshmi name? No.
No.
is the record, the video is recording
Yeah, it's
started?
recording. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Let me just. Okay. GitHub. Pull request. I'm accepting one more pull request SMS project. Just a second. Comment. Question march. Done. I'm sharing my screen now.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's pull the origin. Repository. Show in Explorer. Okay. Cross team 1. Okay. We have separate project folder for project team 1.
Separate. Didn't get you, Vajra.
Like where
I
did you
have
commit?
pasted out of the in in project team one and then week one. Not week one, I guess outside week one. Here I have pasted.
Why
But
there are
from
two
your
project
local
team 1
machine,
folders?
have you fetched it in local Git?
Okay, I haven't pulled the origin. Still got it.
Hello.
Yep, I think we have it now. Supply chain management. So I'll start a UiPath project with RE framework. So how much time do you think that it will take for us to complete this project into RE framework?
For you, it won't take much, but for us, it will take more.
No. For you also it will be easy. See, just understand the flow, just understand what things and how things are moving in. That's how things will become easier. Okay. Now, with your process, there is only one transaction that you are working on, right?
Yeah, Vajra.
Now, if you want to work with multiple transactions, let's have some assumptions. Other than that, nothing. Okay. Project team 1. Let's have a week 2 as well. New folder. Okay. and this is RE framework and supply chain management RE framework. Okay, now with this complete process, let's just understand what and how things will be available. All the pre-written code will be available in framework and main only. And these tests are to do testing, and data is used for data storing the data, input, output, temp, everything. And documentation, you will have complete RE framework documentation in this place. Okay, so any kind of question you have or to understand what things and how things will move, everything will be available in this document. But for now, let's go ahead and close it and just see how we can convert that. Now, to have multiple data, let's have some assumptions, or let's understand that we need to create something. In this input folder, data, in the input folder, let's add new Excel input sheet. So let's also open our code that we have created earlier. SCM v2, and so this is your Excel. So you have downloaded this Excel, right, Alekia?
No, Vajrang. Top one is the main one, I guess. But then if it changes, that is the sheet which I have divided.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay, so this is the divided sheet, and this is the sheet with the CSV file.
Yeah.
Okay, now here we go. A main process. So export to CSV, you had it as separate file. Is it
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Separate XAML file.
Okay,
XAML sequence. Yeah.
fine. So now we have multiple applications, right? Normally, how we do the things. So in this particular process, where will you open the browser in this particular 4 steps? Just check and tell
The
me, like
initialization.
initialization
Init all applications.
at what step?
Initialization.
In the initialization, there is one thing
Open all
called
Open
applications.
first
browser.
run.
Use
First run.
application.
Wait. In the init, there is something called first run. What is it used for? And why is it having as first run?
Only once it gets executed in
For the complete process, right?
only that for the complete process. Yeah.
So if you have the code in first run, whenever there is an exception, will this open again?
No, it will not.
So that is the reason below first run, there is something called init all applications.
Yeah.
Okay, there you need to open the workflow. And here you need to have the workflow, or see, in this project, just a second. So project, and then add folder. So what is the website name? SMS, right? sorry, SCM,
Yeah,
supply
SM.
change management. Okay, so what I'll do, I will create all my files that are related to this particular SCM in this particular folder, SCM. Okay, everything that is related to Excel and other details, if there is any say, specific Excel data, then I will write it as Excel. Okay, so this is for me to just see and understand or segregate what and how things are moving. For example, along with this, if there is any application called calculator, I will just add one more field called a folder called calculator. Now, in this particular folder, I'll just add one more sequence called scm underscore login. Okay, and along with this, we also need something called logout. Okay, add sequence scm underscore logout.
All these sequences will be called as modules.
You can call it as your requirement, but why are we dividing it? So that if you want, if you want to log in, if there is a small button that's added up in the login, and if you have everything in one single file like this, see, everything is there in one try catch, right? So if there
Yeah,
is any
Vajra.
small change required, you need to change the complete flow. You accept it or not, you definitely need to change the complete flow.
Yeah.
But if you're having it as a separate workflow like this, all you need to do is, okay, I have this login file. I just need to update some details in login. Okay, I get asset link. This is where I have the asset. Open browser. So in this, I'll just open the browser. Okay. So all that it does is it will just open the browser and it will keep things ready for us whenever we want. Okay, let's copy and paste. I don't think this is coming in. Open browser. So if you don't find open browser, just change this to activities. In the activities panel, just change this to show classic. Open browser. Now here you have open browser. Okay, so here I'm not doing any coding over here, but just try to understand how things and where things are moving in. SCM login, if I can completely have all the details over here, then I will have it. Okay, but after SCM login, what are the other things that you're doing?
I kept a code in open browser only, Vajra.
Exactly. Now, if there is any error, then you cannot control where exactly and how exactly things are happening. Let's assume that while entering the data, things are moving wrong, or while editing or uploading the file, things are moving wrong. Can you have any control on that?
No.
Okay. So let's copy this and then let's add it. I'm just trying to add nothing else. Activities. So here, can we just add it as an argument, in argument, in underscore scm URL?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So here we can just pass in underscore scm URL. See, here I'm not explaining you how to write the code. You already know how to write the code. You can learn it from online. But where should you write that specific code? Now, should you keep it here or here? In this workflow, now this is where you need to just drag and drop so that you will invoke the workflow. So everything that gets initialized will be initialized over here. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, once it is initialized, then what we will get? We'll get one item, right?
Yeah.
From get transaction data. Now, how are we maintaining? For that, you need to understand what by default RE framework is linked up to. By default, RE framework transaction type is, what is the default transaction type of RE framework? Item type?
Q
Q
item.
item.
Q item. Now, if you want to use it right away, you can use it. But if you want to change, or there will be a question like, okay, now that you have RE framework, I want to customize RE framework. How and what will you do? Okay, so what I will say is, I will first decide what is the transaction item type. Is it a list, or sorry, it cannot be a list. Transaction item can be a single entity, right? Is it a integer, or is it a string, or what is that single entity? So if I want to change, the first thing that I will do is I will update the transaction item to whatever I want. If it is a string, integer, or any single item like object or string. Okay. Now when I do that, you will see a lot of changes or lot of errors. In transaction data, we have an error because that is by default linked to what?
Q.
Yes. Now, there is also one more thing in process transaction. Why are we having this error?
Because set transaction status, inside set transaction status, there was a queue item, like we are setting the progress.
Exactly. So what exactly things and how things are moving is, this RE framework is designed to work with orchestrator queues. So if you want to change, or if you want to update, or if you want to make few changes, best thing to do is to go ahead and first change the item, and depending on that, make the other changes. Okay, now that this is done, then getting transaction data, things should be changed to data is string now. Instead of queue item, things should be a data string. So see here, this is where we have our transaction data type is queue item. If we go ahead into open workflow, okay, import arguments and add transaction item, change this to string and save it. So because our requirement is string, right? Now when you change it again, you will have few errors, because again, this is getting a transaction item from orchestrator queue. You need to remove that and you need to add one item. So all these types of changes you need to make sure our code is moved to a different now working with a different item. But for now, what we will do, we will go ahead and add items to orchestrator queue and we will change them. So this is queue, I'm not changing them, and this is also in main also, I'm just changing back that to a queue. Okay, now this is going as queue item. Okay, so let's have a input file with all the details. Where will you maintain that input file?
In data.
Okay, so let's go ahead and add in data. Go to data folder, go to input and input sheet.
What's why is placeholder?
Placeholder,
What is it?
a asset is a
Yeah.
placeholder. Something that you can dynamically place is a placeholder. Okay, for example, now if you have in argument URL, now can you add any URL in that and can you open the browser?
No.
Yes, you can. Now here in SCM login, this in SCM URL is a placeholder. It's an argument. If you want to add, or if you want to change www.google.com, now if you run the process, will this run?
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Now if I change this to, instead of google.com to facebook.com, will this run?
Yes, it will.
Okay, so that's what a placeholder is about. Now if you have something, sorry for this. Okay, now if you have something on uh, a particular place, this in SCM URL, and now if you add dynamically some data on that, okay, now that's what is called a placeholder, and that's how you can add things. Now if you have something in the asset, if you have created something in the asset and you're calling the data, now all of a sudden if you change the asset value, okay, will that be reflected in the code or not?
Yes, it will.
So now asset is called a placeholder or not?
Yes.
Okay, so again this opened. So this is called placeholders, and this is how you work on the placeholders. Okay, now instead of placeholders, just call them as assets to avoid any confusion. Okay, now let's go back to our code and let's create that input file. What is the URL for the input file? RPA samples, right?
rpasamples.com. Yeah.
Okay, now open this supply chain management. So suppliers, when you are creating a new supplier, just you need to add in what are the details. Like you need to have something called internal name, okay, external name, what are the other details? Description,
File.
file, description, so description, and then input
Industry.
photo path,
Industry.
okay,
Industry.
for industry or whatever it is. So we can add all our details. So in the first name, let's add A, B, C, D, E. Here we are not writing the exact data, just understand and continue the work. Okay, description. Okay, now these photo paths, I need to have a clear understanding, or I need to know where exactly I'm placing the files. Okay, so in the input, let's go ahead, and in this particular place, let's add all our images. I hope there are some images that I can use. Let me just see them.
So all the
Pictures.
data files will be added under the data folder.
If you want, but the problem with adding data files in the data folder is if you are making any changes to the project in data folder, the complete project should be moved. Okay, or else there is one more way. Now this is our project code, right? Where if you create a package, this is where we will get the data from, or this is where the project is. Let's have a separate folder itself, data folder, RPA bot new folder, and this folder will call as RPA data folder. Now in this RPA data folder, let's add something called, our process name is SCM, right? So let's add a folder called SCM, and in this folder let's add our files. Okay, now this is what we have. I'll just copy the path, copy as path, and I'll paste it. Now who will create this data for us? Okay, now Vajrang, you're
Business.
saying that this we need to do it. Now should a developer sit and create this, or who will create this?
Business will give
Operation.
us. Yeah, client will give this data.
Sorry?
Client will be giving and business analyst will be doing it.
So instead of telling that, let's assume that there is an accountant for whom this process attend. He is the person who is running this. Okay, all he need to do is he need to make sure that the file is ready for other activities, for all the activities with all the correct data. We will inform him stating that, okay, boss, here is the file. If you add correct details on this and give it to the robot will do all the manual work for you. But creating this file is your responsibility with all the correct data. Okay, did you get the point? Yes, no. What exactly?
Not
So
exactly.
operations team will handle care this.
Repeat your question, please.
Operations team will handle this.
Don't
Like
say it as an operation team. Even client need to sit and do it, right?
yeah.
Okay. Anyone who is responsible, even client should give it to someone who is responsible for this process. Our process or our responsibility is to develop the bot and to make sure the bot is running. I'll give you one more simple example. You have mobiles in your hand, right? Okay. So mobile manufacturer will create application and give it for you. If there is Instagram gave you an option to upload the pics. Now it is your responsibility to click a picture and to upload it. It's not Instagram responsibility to click picture for you, right? Okay. So in the same way, in the business users as well, we need to have their responsibilities as well. So creating this document is their responsibility. Now instead of wasting time, let's go ahead and save it. Now all I have from this is, let's go into my document. I have a separate data folder. Now if I want to add data, should I re-upload the code again?
No, you can simply add in RPA data.
Can I also do something like this? Can I have this input data folder completely out of this into a data folder?
Yeah.
Except the config, because config must be placed in the same place, but except the config, I can have everything over there, right?
Yes.
So what I'll do, I'll just remove everything. Okay, and I will move back to project 1, RPA data folder, SCM, and I will add the details. Now, is my project data separate from the code files or not?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
now if I want to upload the code, I need not worry about what this particular input and output folders has. Okay, all I need to check is if the process is able to check this input sheet. Now, if can I give this single input sheet as a path to the project folder?
Yeah.
Okay, rather than going in that way, let's go ahead and see. Let's make things much more easier. Okay, now we need to initialize or we need to add the data, right? Now, where will we add the data? How many times do we need to create a queue, add the data into queue? Is it once or is it every time we run the process?
Once.
Once.
So where should we write the code to run it only once?
First run.
So here is the first run. So in this first run, even at the bottom you can write or even at the top you can write. But before adding or after adding the log fields, you can just write read Excel, read range. Okay, I'm using a workbook activity. In this workbook,
Question,
just
could you
give out a
please
path.
zoom it up? It's not visible.
Yeah, I'll do it. So RPA data, SCM, input sheet. So is this the path that we are working on as an input folder?
Yeah.
Okay. So now what exactly and how exactly things will move? Here we need to give the sheet name as sheet 1. Range is fine. And properties, let's give it out as. So all the data that you read, what is the type of it and what is the variable that we need to assign for this? Go back to our previous sessions and think. So out of all these variables, which one should we assign? Transaction item, business rule exception, system exception, transaction item, config, retry number.
Transaction data.
Exactly. So the combination of all the data that we are working on is transaction data. This is the complete data. So this comes to transaction data. Okay. Now once we read the transaction data, should we add into orchestrator queue or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not required.
Why is it not required? Then when you are working in RE framework, then if you are not using queues, then how and where will you work?
Okay. I thought we are using Excel. Okay.
But Excel, you cannot directly use it into RE framework, right?
Yeah.
So first what we will do, we will collate all the data and we will move it to orchestrator as queue items.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's assume that instead of running with one item, I have 10 robots. Is my process compatible to run with 10 different machines or not?
Yes, it is.
Why is it so?
Yes.
Because that is the advantage with queue. We can
Multi-port.
assign multi-bot. Yeah.
So everything will be accessed, or every robot will access only from one place. So data will not be duplicated, data will be segregated, and robot will ask the data from where it should get the values. Okay, so this is what is happening. That's the reason we are not going too much on classic folders. We are working only on modern folders. Classic folders is getting deprecated. Okay, let's go with queues and let's add one single queue called SCM queue. Create new queue, SCM, and where should we mention this in the code?
You can do it in config file or else in the variables.
So always remember, a queue name will always be available in config file. Data folder and config.
We can also do it through variables as also now, like
Yeah, if you create something in a variable, then when
to
you
that.
want to change the name, will you be able to do it? While execution,
Yeah.
let's assume that this is SCM, right?
Uh, it's a bit difficult to change through variables, like changing, but then if it is config file, we can do it easily.
No, even with config file, you cannot change it. It only can happen if you have it in assets. See, you need to first inform to the client that, okay, this is the queue name and this will not be changed. But if the customer insists that, okay, now I have one queue, I also need to have a different queue and I want to make it as dynamic, then RE framework also supports that. Okay, but for now, whenever you have a queue name, this is where you will add it to. Okay,
Okay.
and save it. Orchestrator queue name settings file, close. All you need to do now is to use RE framework and use that magic. Now here we have RE framework read only. Now, do we need to add it to queue?
Yes.
Add queue items. Add bulk queue items. So when I add bulk queue items, I can send input as a data table. Okay,
Yeah.
DT. So there is an important interview question like what is the difference between add bulk queue item and add queue item?
Add bulk queue item, you can add data as the data table, and then the queue item is a single item you can add.
Now, why
I
are we
think.
having two items and what is the difference? Is okay, except having a single item, what is the other difference?
When we have
Like
to upload data to queue one by
Duplicates.
one, we use a single one, and we have to when we have to upload in bulk, we use this bulk add queue items.
Okay,
And
so
also, was can we create any other column or other data we can add in add data queue, but we don't have any option like bulk add queue items. We cannot add any data.
So let me just show it to you. There is also something called add transaction item. We will also discuss about it. This is very important interview question. Okay. Now here in the add queue item, if you see, we will have something called deadline, item collection, item information and all. But in add queue item, add bulk queue item, we will not have all these and references. So with bulk queue items, you cannot set the reference of any item. Remember that.
Sorry, come again.
So with add bulk queue items, okay, there is no way how you can add a reference in this particular item. To why reference is used? To make sure that items are unique, reference is used. That is like your ID. So if you can see here, there is reference column, right?
So every queue will be having a reference number, unique reference number.
Every queue item can have a reference number that you need to add. Okay. For example, we are adding 4 items in the Excel, right? With external name and all. But they also have IDs, and you should not process ID once it is already processed by the bot. Okay. Okay. For now, let's go with this. Just understand that with add queue item, you can set the deadline, like when that should be closed and what how much time can it be postponed, and priority you can set. But add bulk queue items, you cannot set all those. You can do only upload of one item or one data table. You cannot have a control of each item. Okay. But when this will be useful?
When you are using the data table.
Not only when you're using the data table, you need not worry about each item. If the data is moved into orchestrator queue, then that's where things will move on. Then you can continue with that. Okay. Now here we have add queue item. Here we have transaction item. So what is the major difference between add queue item and add transaction item?
The status will be new in add queue item when we add it to the queue, and add transaction item adds the queue items as directly as a work in progress.
There is one more difference. Add queue item will not give you any output. If you can see, common input, output are the main things. But add transaction item, you will have something called as output. Okay. Add transaction item will give you back one transaction item for you to work. For now, I'm deleting these 2 items, but that is the interview question, and the answer is add queue items, which you said is correct. Add queue item will create a new queue item. Add transaction item will add the item to orchestrator and will change it to in progress state. Okay, it will not be in new state. So whichever bot created that item must use it. I'll tell you one more example. After the execution of this, let's go ahead and first execute this and then we'll continue. So breakpoint, debug file.
Rajnan, in which scenarios we use dispatcher performer kind of
In every
thing?
scenario, see, it doesn't depend on the scenario, it depends upon how you create the bot. Every
Okay, but then
scenario can be converted as dispatcher and performer. Okay.
okay, if you take this if you take this Excel file, we can directly write it in a first run and can run it, right? Like what is the actual need of creating as a dispatcher, like separate file? That time we have to do it, we have to trigger the both the projects twice, right? What is
Okay.
the actual need of that?
Okay. Now, when you are executing this particular process, is it adding items to queue and taking the values?
Yeah, it's adding.
Hmm. Now, if you want to add, or if you have 100 steps, okay, in this
Okay.
particular process.
Yeah.
Okay, now if you have this particular process, or if you have 100 steps only in the dispatcher process, then how will you add the code? Like the complete code will be too big, right, to handle. And
Okay. Like.
if there are any 30 steps in only dispatcher process, for example, we are just reading the Excel file now. But what if we want to make some manipulations? Only after that we need to add two queue items. For example, there are 100 applications. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, out of those 100 applications, bot need to validate and check how many are valid applications. Okay.
Okay.
And bot need to, after validating, only then it should process.
Mm-hmm.
Now we
Okay.
have the
Okay.
validation and creation of queue as a separate process. That is a dispatcher process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the actual work, creation of any particular account or creation of any particular user in a system or working on any particular ticket is a separate process.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, dispatcher is not only adding items to orchestrator queue. That's what I always say. It's also a complete process. But why are we calling it as a dispatcher? Because it will create items to orchestrator queue. Performer will
Okay. Got it.
consume the items from orchestrator queue. Now, can we
Okay.
have multiple dispatchers?
No,
Yeah.
I think so. Yes.
We can have with different queues.
No, with single queue.
Okay. No.
Yes,
The,
I
why
an-
can't
think
we can
yes.
have?
the
Yeah. I
answer
think
is yes,
yes.
we can. But it depends on how exactly are you trying to, or how exactly are you making sure that data will not be duplicated. For example, I have four members here. Four members are executing the process, and four members are started the dispatcher process. Now, how will you make sure the data doesn't get duplicated or four members doesn't work on the single file? So that is the reason
Mm.
what we will do is we will normally use only one dispatcher process, okay, to create items to orchestrator queue. When that is done, then all the other items can pick one item and they can work on it. Okay. And one more thing, the dispatcher time is only 10 seconds or 20 seconds. But that gives you an advantage of having the process separate and maintaining its own code. Okay. Now let's go ahead and step into. This is throwing an error. What exactly it is throwing an error output? So SCM does not exist because the folder, I think that is wrong.
Like the
Let's
queue
just,
name should be changed, right? To the
queue name
SCM.
is already changed. Let me just check it again. So I'll have this particular item. What is the output that we get? SCM does not exist. So SCM folder does SCM queue item does not exist or queue does not exist. Let's go to my workspace and let's add it. Queues, in-house process, add queue item, create new queue item, SCM, and let's add it over here. Maybe that's in a different folder. Let's debug this again. Who is joining in multiple times? Guys, please log in before you join. Let's leave them, not allowing. Okay, now if we have this one, let's see what is the data that we have in CM config. So I can check the data here. Config. So I have all the values in the config that came over here. Here we have orchestrator queue name as SCM. Step into. Now all the items are added up here. So if you go ahead into SCM and if you go into view transactions, and I have all the items as new items. View details. Okay. Now in this process, are we having a separate dispatcher process or are we having a single dispatcher and performer process?
Single one only.
Sorry?
Think
It's
it's
in
a
the
single.
single main workflow only.
Now, is it accepted in an organization or not, having a single code for both dispatcher and performer?
If it is in dispatcher, if you are writing just like reading the Excel file, then it may be acceptable.
No,
So,
Wisdom. Why? Because in uh, the data maybe increases, so bot time will increase. So if we go for dispatcher, so then we can utilize with the 2 to 3 machines or more than 2 machines we can use. So the time
I
will.
think you are correct partially and you are wrong as well. Let me tell you. Now, when you are working on this code, if you deploy it in multiple machines, will all the machines read that Excel file well and will they add details to orchestrator queue or not?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a flaw in this process, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Wisdom.
But if client or customer says that, okay, I will not have multiple bots because I don't have the licenses for them. This bot run in only machine and only one process. Now, is it the correct process or not?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it doesn't depend only on the way how we execute, but also the way how we license the bot. Okay, if the customer is saying that, okay, I have only one process where I cannot give the I cannot give one more license for you, or if you even if you have the bot, I need it will not run on more than one machine. Okay, let's take it like this. We need not run in more than one machine. Then this process is correct because every time bot only runs one time. Even if it is separate dispatcher or performer process, bot will run in the same machine or the process will run in the same machine and we will get the data. Okay, so that is how we need to think. It's not only about execution. So when I am executing or when I am discussing with you about project activities, what exactly is your idea? Did you think that we will discuss only about the code or what exactly was your idea and how things are moving in now? Can anyone tell me?
The code everywhere we can get it, but the way how we do it, this one I am not aware, like how dispatcher and performer works. Before I was thinking what is the need of dispatcher. Now as you said, like in multi-bot, if you are using multi-bot, every time the bot runs, bot will bot will do the dispatcher and it will add the items to the queue every time in every bot, and that should not be done.
Exactly.
Yeah, the way how we do it, we'll get it from here.
Okay. So just understand that if you are a human who is designing the bot, how will you make sure that a dumbass bot can work properly? You are the brain over here. It's not the bot who is creating or who is creating the records. If you did not create a bot properly, then the bot will obviously fail.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you get it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we have added items to queue, and but here there is a catch again. Now, okay, boss, I have added items to queue, but all of a sudden I have multiple requirements. So I just need to add items or deploy items to multiple bots. Now, what is your approach?
Vajra, can you please repeat it?
Okay, now we have created a bot with dispatcher as well as performer process, where in the first run we are updating items to orchestrator queue, right?
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden business, that idiot, came back and said me that, okay, now I want the process executing, I have a separate license, let's run it in 3-4 machines. How can you
Okay.
make sure this is future ready and it's not updating multiple times? Or now when I deploy this process, it will read the items and it will upload, right, every time? How can I make sure that it uploads only once?
Like the same project, like without any modification, should we do, or can we do any modifications
That's
in
what
the
I'm
project?
asking. That's what I'm asking you.
We have to do like only the dispatcher file. We can create it as a separate.
I don't want to create it as a separate dispatcher file.
Okay, not sure then.
Anyone else? Can you give me any idea?
Sorry to ask you.
Your voice is breaking, sorry.
Could you please repeat the question again?
Can you please type in the question? I'm not getting your voice. Let's just chat. Any other ideas? I'll take only 2 minutes more. We'll complete it. Any other answer for that? Okay, so my answer would be, so before I add items to orchestrator queue or before I rearrange, I will just check if there are any new items in the orchestrator queue with get queue items. Okay, so what get queue items will give me? It will give me a count. So if you see here, and if I just add the items to orchestrator queue, I will get the details from orchestrator queue. So here we have, and instead of having all the states, I will check only with the new state. So everything that is in new state, let's see with items, queue items, control K. Okay, now this is queue items. Now can we write an if condition checking that if there is any new item, then don't add items to orchestrator queue? Can we do that or not?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, now if I
Rather than that, can't we add queue item and then add reference?
yeah, so
Or
that is a way
can
how
we
you
also,
can
sorry.
avoid duplicate items. For example, you can also add reference item and add queue item and add a reference. But every time you need to check if the item is processed or if the item is already existing. What if the item is already processed and I still need to add it again because in the first run it failed? While it is executing in the first time, the bot failed. So now I want to create a duplicate item deliberately. Now with unique
Okay.
items, can I do that?
No. No.
But if I
Yeah.
have like this queue items and dot count if it is greater than 0, only new items if it is greater than or if it is equal to 0, only then add items to orchestrator queue. Okay, see or think this logic again. Now I'm going back while executing for each and every bot in the first run. What is the first thing that it will do? It will first check if there are any new items. If there are already new items, it will continue with the processing state. It will not add new items again. There can be 10 different robots. But if there are no items, the first robot that started, it will check and it will execute first and it will add all the items. By the time second robot checks and tries to add the item, it already has the items and it will stop the bot from adding new items again. Can you get the logic here?
Yes.
Yes, no, all right, tell me.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. But then Vajrang,
Hmm.
like one more record if got added in between the first bot and second bot,
Hmm. So that's what.
then it will not add items, right?
Let's assume that you are a bot and I am a bot.
Yeah.
We both started, but what exactly happened is I started a minute before you.
Okay.
Now, when I want to add the data, I will first go to orchestrator, okay, and I will see if there are any new items. Okay.
Okay.
Now I found
Yeah.
that there are no new items, so immediately I went to the Excel and I added one item, at least one item. Now, when you
Okay.
started the execution, when you see with orchestrator queue, how many new items will already be there in it?
There will be one item.
So will you add details again?
No, will not add. But then in middle after you fetch the like after you put the details in the queue and I start the process, some record might get added, right?
Yeah, if some record might get added, that risk will still always be there if it is a single dispatcher process. So that's when we need to check with item. For example, in this particular process, in this particular item, we have reference, right? Instead of adding it as a unique item, we can still check with this reference and see if that reference is having it, if we have already this in a new state. Edit item, edit this queue. See, we did not enable unique items, right? Enforce unique items.
Yeah.
So while adding or before we add, we can make a condition or we can make a check again that if this particular item is available, exactly this reference item, if it is available, then don't add it. We can still do that, right?
Okay.
Okay. This is all about how you think on the process. Everything that you think can be doable. Okay, so
Yeah.
what we will do, we will work on the same thing and we'll complete the process in RE framework. So I'll save these files for now. But did you understand? Only 4 steps took around 40 minutes for us to discuss because there are multiple scenarios in the dispatcher. Okay, let's stop our discussion over here. So Maruti, are you still there? I think Maruti left because he has a meeting. So if not Maruti, I want everyone to use this code and I'll give you 2 links how to convert any project to RE framework. Okay, so check these 2 videos, RPA Developer Workshop 1, RPA Developer Workshop 2. Okay, using these two, you can check, you can get the values. You can also use this basics of RE framework. Okay, I'm guiding you correctly, so utilize it and complete the process or complete this particular activity for yourself. Now tell me one thing, will our process require a separate multi-bot framework with separate dispatcher performer, or will our process requires only single process or single execution?
It requires separate dispatcher and performer if we have
Okay,
bulk
see,
number
in,
of.
in the interview, you should not decide that. That's what the point is all about. Don't
Yeah,
just
yeah.
commit to saying that, okay, I have, so I want this bot to be multi-bot, or I don't want this bot to be multi-bot. Discuss with an interviewer like what is his exact requirements. So when you discuss
Okay.
with him, then he will get to know that, okay, you know all the scenarios for a robot and how you need to create a multi-bot architecture. So when I ask that question, then the second thing that you need to, or the first thing that you need to tell is, so how many executions or how many robots are we going to deploy it into? Then what is the input or what is the input file? Where are we getting the input file? And what are the triggers and how we are working with the triggers? Because even today when I have asked, none of you are trying to speak about triggers or input files or data. Okay. Again, I'm saying an experienced person will never talk about any if condition or triggering the bot. They will talk more about executions. They will talk more about handling exceptions. They will talk more about understanding how a bot should work rather than how a bot step by step will be executed.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's it for today. Use these three videos. I'm not giving the links. Just search. Use Google videos and search RE Framework Part 1, Part 2, and RE Framework Made Easy in 2021. That's when I have created 10 months back. So the first thing is you can check with this one, then go for this one, or else you can go for Part 2 and then come back to this one. Can you do that? Or
Yeah.
if you are not getting things from me, you can go with any other creator as well. That's absolutely fine. I'm never saying that you should only use my videos, but I already know what are there in my videos, so I'm just guiding you through those. If you found a better one, just give it to all the team members. Okay, so can we
Okay.
drop off for today? Any questions you have?
Yeah.
Manoj, just now you mentioned the interviewer focus on execution. Can you please repeat that again?
Okay. Now, if you who asked that question?
Sumant.
Suman,
Yeah.
the question again comes to you. So Sumant, here is a process. The process execute. The process came in. Now we want to give our requirement or requirement analysis to our clients. So if I'm a project manager, if I'm asking you this, how many years of experience do you have, Sumant, in RPA?
Plus.
Sorry, 2+. Right.
Yeah.
Now, what will you talk about? If this is an interview question, give me the answer.
So, firstly, I'll talk about my recent project and like where I involving
No, no,
with
no. I'm
requirement
asking a
gathering.
client scenario for you here. I'm a project manager. You are already working on a project. I already know that you have 2+ years of experience. Now I have a requirement. I gave it to you. How will you approach?
Okay, first the first instance, like whether it may be it's just structured format or not first thing. Everything can be automated or not second thing. And then after we can create with the documents and everything.
Uh-huh.
And we will create one POC kind of stuff first.
Uh-huh.
We will ask this.
Sumant, you haven't prepared your transcript. You know the questions, you know that you should answer, but you haven't prepared yourself for it. Are you getting the difference, Sumant?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're telling points on the fly, but when you do or when you create a transcript, you'll answer something like, okay, I will do first a feasibility check and I will provide the analysis, and I will check if there are any requirements that are pending in and the data is fine, if it is structured or not. If it is not structured, then I will check on what exactly and how exactly we need to make sure the process standardized and we need to structure the data. We'll first design the exact process and we'll make sure that the process will not change in any future, so that we can go with automation. But if we are going with any kind of process where it completely changes so frequently for every 15 days or 10 days, where we are having multiple records with multiple different types of transactions and multiple types of data, then we will ask the user to refrain from going ahead with the automation. We'll just go ahead and ask him to first correct the process and come back, or we will give him an idea on how to correct the process. So I have already been a part of this kind of activities, because in the previous workflows that I worked on, or in the previous projects that I worked on, not every project has a complete predefined steps. Even client need to understand what exactly and how exactly RPA or bot will work. If he is a well matured client with all the process activities, if he is already know, then he will give me the correct information. But since we are the projects that I have already worked with, they are new clients. They need to first understand sometime with the process. I was able to convince them to first standardize the process, and I help them in creating the process flows and making sure that the process standardized. Sometimes what exactly have happened is, even before we created a robot, when we standardize the process, we have eliminated 50 minutes of the or 7 to 10 minutes of the process that is not required. Okay. And once we moved into deployment or development, the process became very easy for us, because we are already having enough experience to make sure where to place the things and how to place the things. Do we need to create RE framework, or do we need to go for advanced RE framework, or do we need to create our own custom activities? We already had the experience. Okay. Now, Sumant, did I speak confident enough to make sure that interviewer will understand that I have the experience or not?
Yeah, pretty confident.
How much difference
Convince.
did it make? So it makes a lot of difference, Sumant. So understand and prepare your transcript first. Let it get reviewed. Okay. If you are working on the steps that I say, you can with 100% accuracy, you can get close to 100% to 200% hikes as well. But if you're going as a regular developer, you can expect only 30% of hike, Sumant. Because you're not doing anything extra than what is expected. Or if even if you're doing, you're not able to showcase it in an interview. Am I clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So prepare your transcript. Are you applying for interviews or not?
Yes, I'm applying for it.
Okay. Just prepare your transcript and make sure that you answer to an experienced person, not to a 1 or 2 years basic person who does only development but nothing else. Okay. This is for everyone, not only Sumant. even if you are from non-IT background, even if you are from a different background out of RPA, but if you have placed 3 to 4 years of experience in the resume, interviewer will never be able to track or check if you have it or not, if you are able to clear the rounds of interviews or if you are able to answer them correctly. Okay, and if you ask me, will I select someone like that? And yes, obviously I have selected someone like that because they are not just having the experience, but they know all the approaches. They have the real time understanding of the process. They can do things much more easier than others. Okay. Okay, stopping the recording. Thank you.